Welcome to SQL Friday. This is episode 23, and our speaker, star of today, is Gonzalo Bissio. Sorry. The
Yes.
topic is Azure SQL DB Managed Instance, a different SQL server. And I think the answer is going to be yes and no, but we will see. The stage is all yours, Gonzalo.
Thank you very much.
Just one thing before Gonzalo starts, while you set up the screen share, if you have any questions as an attendee, just type the questions in the chat and I will interrupt Gonzalo as we feel fit into the presentation. Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely. The most important thing here is that we want to learn all together. So for me, the most important thing is that you ask your questions so you can get your answers. So please feel free to stop me whenever you want. If you want to unmute yourself, feel free. If you want to ping into the chat, please feel free. So for me, it's fine.
Perfect.
Let me share. Dun, 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 dun. Are you able to see my screen?
I am. It looks good.
Nice. Okay, so let's start. First of all, Magnus, thank you very much for this opportunity. I am very happy and excited to be here. I know that you are doing a lot of episodes. I see some of them. I know that you are doing a lot of stuff for the community, so thank you very much. I know that these kind of things sometimes take time that you can enjoy with your family, and you are doing this, so thank you very much. Today we are going to talk about Azure SQL Managed Instance before Azure SQL Database Managed Instance. They changed the name, who knows why. But I will try to answer this question. When this service came up 2 years ago, I made myself the same question to see, hey, are we going to have a different SQL server? Well, we're going to see. First of all, I will introduce myself. I am Gonzalo Bissio. I am a database consultant today working in Accenture. I am the global Azure SQL product owner inside database team. I am in charge of everything related to Azure SQL stuff inside Accenture. We don't work with final clients. We work more for internal applications. So that is my responsibility. I am a Microsoft certified trainer, among other stuff. So, there you have my contact. Feel free to reach out to me in case that you need help. This is my email, my Twitter. Yes, I am a Rocky Balboa soldier because I love Rocky Balboa. The agenda, all the things that we are going to cover today, some introduction, services, among other stuff. I don't know if someone is using Managed Instance today. Yes or no? It's a service that you want to use.
I haven't started yet, but I'm looking at it. Thorsten says yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that you see this image recently or sometime. Have three different, there is one family called Azure SQL family inside Microsoft. Inside this Azure SQL family, you will find the VMs or running SQL Server in VMs. Then you have the other part, which is the service part, where we have three different options. The first one is the Azure SQL database, single database, or the Elastic Pool. This means that you will have a fully service or database service that you can use. You have an Elastic Pool where you have a pool of databases that share the resources, but you are going to pay only for the amount of resources, and those resources will be shared between all the databases that exist inside. And the third one, the one that we are going to cover today, which is Managed Instance. First of all, every time that I try to use something new, I try to learn as much as I can. Obviously, experience is experience. There will be some stuff that you say, oh, I can't believe it that this happened to me. Well, that can happen. But my first recommendation is if you are not using Azure as a cloud provider, first of all, try to analyze, okay, how many people do we have? do these people know about Azure? Do these people know about connectivity and networking? How are we going to connect from our data center to Azure? Do we have a data center? Are we going to have everything inside the cloud? So since we are going to move to something new, just try to learn as much as you can. For managed instance, honestly, as of now, for me, in terms of operation, is the best option because you will have the exact same SQL Server that you have in on-premises or infrastructure as a service, but as a service. There are some limitations that we are going to cover today, but the thing is, you will forget about patching. I mean, yes, it is true that you can use MSAs or GMSAs to avoid rotating the password for the service account, but the thing is, you forget about the security inside your VM. You will forget a number of things, or antivirus, or I forgot to add the rule for the database file because that is something common. So you will only concern about the performance, about the between how to define the high availability, but it will be more the service itself, not the infrastructure. You know that on the cloud we have different layers. We have infrastructure as a service, we have platform as a service, we have software as a service. On this case, managed instance is platform as a service. Microsoft will bring you or will give you the platform, so you just need to care about how the platform is behaving. To see if it is working as you expect or as if your customer expects. We have different characteristics here. The thing, or one of the, from my point of view, one of the big limitations in Azure SQL Database or Elastic Pool, which is the same, because the only thing that changes how the resources are shared or how are you using the resources, is that, for example, the cross-database queries are not supported. That is one of the big problems from my point of view. Yes, it is true that managed instance will support shops. You can create your shops. You can create a catalog, obviously with Azure Data Factory as well. But one of my main concerns or problems with applications today is that a lot of applications use cross-database queries, a lot of. And with managed instance, you can do that. Also, you can have your jobs. I'm going to show you later in some demos that you can create your own jobs. But the thing is, from my point of view, these are things that applications use a lot. Another very important thing for me, it's critical, is how to migrate, how to get to the service. Last week, we have a project inside the company that we need to migrate a 15 terabyte database from infrastructure as a service to platform as a service. And honestly, moving it to a service, it's without backup or restore. Honestly, it's a very difficult one, you know. I try to use one, David Smauri, which is a program manager inside Azure team. There is a smart bulk copy tool, but honestly, moving a database to a service without doing a backup restore, it's a very difficult stuff. Well, managed instance allows you. You can directly execute backup and restore to migrate. Obviously, you can use database migration service, but behind bars, it will execute a backup and restore. Honestly, that is critical because sometimes we don't have a big migration window. And honestly, if we are not executing a backup restore, it's a little difficult because we can use backpacks, but the backpacks takes time. So that is one of the huge, or one of my favorite things about managed instance. Besides cross-database queries, jobs, link servers, replication. I mean, sometimes this is a discussion that I normally have with different applications that they said, okay, hey, Gonzalo, I know that you're a DBA. I know that you're going to tell me, hey, change some stuff. Sometimes applications want to say, hey, I have my database here and I want the same stuff in the cloud as a service. For example, replication, linked servers. I mean, I don't like too much using link servers because I think that open backdoors. I think that we can use another stuff to integrate data. We can use the data factory instead. But sometimes applications say, Gonzalo, I don't want to change anything. I want to move this database from IaaS or on premises to PaaS. Period. Simple. I don't want to change anything. Well, okay, I would say, okay, do you have replication? Okay, let's configure replication. Do you have link server? Well, let's configure link server. So these are all of the things that managed instance will allow you to have all of these features, as well as, well, database mail, well, query store, which is by default enabled, among other stuff. One of the important things that maybe you already know, but just in case, I will tell you, is that started SQL 2019, there was a decision from Microsoft to avoid removing or deprecating code inside SQL Server. Here in Managed Instance, always we will have the latest SQL Server 2019 because it is the latest version. I mean, if you install SQL 2019 and you want to use Managed Instance, well, this will be 100% compatible. You just need to make sure that once you migrate, once you restore, once you move your database, you change the compatibility level, because if you move the database and you don't change the compatibility level, well, the new features will not work. So just make sure that once you migrate, just change the compatibility level, because that is something that we think that automatically will change. No, because it's like a SQL Server, so you can modify compatibility level, you can modify MaxDOP. I'm going to show you in a demo later, but it is flexible. You can change those stuff. Some considerations. Well, one of the important things is that if you have multiple files, for example, we have a very, very large database, I don't know, 4 or 5 terabytes, and you want to migrate, and you have multiple data files, you can migrate it, you can use multiple data files. Important stuff is that you can't modify the TempDB before you can. Now you can't. You can modify the autogrow, you can modify the initial file size for user databases, but not for TempDB. We're going to cover one important thing once we talk about general purpose and business critical service tiers. Another very important thing, I know that there are a lot of InfoSec teams that hates about the idea on having a service, that has connectivity to internet or has visibility to internet. I know that InfoSec teams hates that, and I understand them. So one of the very good things about Managed Instance is that once you deploy the service, you are going to, or the service will use what we call a VNet, which is a virtual network, or like a NIC in a VM or in a on-premises VM. So having this VNet will obviously, once you have this VNet, you can connect with different services, but without opening the connectivity to internet. So the service will not be open to internet by default. So you don't need to do anything to say, hey, I want to remove my service from the internet connectivity, which is, I would think, which allows us to, okay, hey, we want to connect this VM, this web app, these internal Azure services against this managed instance. Well, you just need to do the famous VNet peering to connect to different VNets, or open the connectivity using network security rules. And at least you will be sure that this service will not be impacted by the internet, which is awesome. Honestly, we have a big project because we also use Azure SQL database. And one of the concerns from InfoSec team was, hey, I am able to reach to this Azure SQL Dev Logical Server from my home using my connectivity. And it was like, hey, yes. Because by default, Azure SQL database is open to internet, unless you use something called private link, which is a new stuff that came in GA some months ago. But in order to use that, you need to create a DNS. You need to do some stuff that I will recommend to do, because if you don't want to expose your service to internet, honestly, that will be the best way. Obviously, you have some firewall rules that can control the access to your service. You can use VNets, but the service will be open to internet. The only way to remove Azure SQL database from the internet is only using a private link. So this is another point for managed instance, that by default, it will be closed. You can use what we call public endpoints, but you need to enable them. There will be a huge message that will say, hey, are you sure that you want to enable this? Obviously, you can control, between quotes, the access to the managed instance from the internet, but for me, it will be dangerous. Authentication thing, another important stuff. Windows authentication here is not supported, so if you are having an Active Directory, or if you implemented Active Directory inside Azure in some VMs, well, the Windows authentication will not work. The only one that will work is Azure Active Directory. So that means that you need to implement Azure Active Directory, copy your entire AD to Azure Active Directory, and then you will be able to use that authentication, but not Windows authentication, or SQL authentication, and that's it. So if you're trying to use Windows authentication once you connect, well, that will give you an error. Different tools, you know them, Management Studio, Azure Data Studio, Visual Studio. I mean, you can use all of them. Important stuff, I don't know if you are aware, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but once you install the latest Management Studio version, Azure Data Studio will be installed as well, and you can't control that. So if you see that, hey, what happened here? I have Management Studio and Azure Data Studio. Well, that is something that was forced behind bars. We have two different service tiers: general purpose, business critical. The difference, or the big difference, is, for example, in general purpose, as you can see on this image, and the between quotes HA built-in from Microsoft is that if something happened with one of the active nodes, automatically, I mean, Azure Service Fabric will detect that one of the nodes is down, automatically will get one of the passive nodes from the pool, and the service will have a little downtime if something happened, and that's it. Another stuff is that general purpose support up to 8 terabytes of data. And the TempDB size will not depend, or will not share the same size as the storage or the one that you choose for the service. So that will be a separate storage for TempDB. The TempDB will depend obviously on the service tier that you choose. Another difference is that the storage is not attached directly to the general purpose service. It will be a remote premium storage. So, I mean, that will be that we have a little latency there. The number of IOPS of the databases depends on the size. So if you have more size, you will have more IOPS, up to 7,500, but that will depend on the size of the file. So if you want more IOPS, you need to increase the file size. But obviously, if you don't have enough storage, you will have to upgrade your managed instance. And then we have business critical. I told you that in general purpose the storage is remote. Well, here it's not remote. They are super fast SSD attached to the VM. Inside this business critical, Microsoft will build an availability group topology with 4 nodes. On the primary, we're going to read and we're going to write, and we can use one of the secondary replicas to execute reads, we need to use this famous read application intent read only. So you are going to connect to the secondary directly, obviously putting the database name like an availability group. This replica will be included on the price that you are paying, so you don't need to pay extra money because of this secondary replica. So you will have the same power. So if you have 16 cores on the primary replica, you are going to have 16 cores on the secondary replica, and you can offload the reads. As I mentioned, the storage is attached locally. The thing is that for TempDB now in Business Critical shares the same storage with the storage that you pay today. So in case that you want to use TempDB, be careful because you are sharing the same storage. You will have better throughput because of this thing about the storage stuff, that it is directly attached to it. But another thing is that the Business Critical, the maximum size is 4 terabytes. So as I mentioned at the beginning, if you are going to move here, just read all of this stuff. I don't know if I am allowed to say this, but let's keep this between us. There is a private preview for general purpose of 16 terabytes, but it is private. I don't know when they are going to release this to public. So maybe in the future, in the coming month, we have 16 terabytes instead of 8. Having said that, since we are talking about space, just be careful, because if your database is 7 terabytes and you are just hitting the limit of the general purpose, just try to calculate what will be the growth of the database, because once you reach 8 terabytes, that's it. You can't do anything. You can shrink the files. Oh, I have a problem in my log. Can I shrink it? Yes, you can shrink it. I mean, you are hearing that these are the things that we normally do in on-premises or infrastructure as a service. So it is the same. There are some limitations. Well, for example, the memory only works for Business Critical. If you want to enable the new in-memory TempDB tables, they would not work, obviously, because once you try to enable it, it will say, hey, no, you can't do this. It's not allowing managed instance. Why? Well, it's simple. After you enable the in-memory TempDB feature, you need to restart the SQL, because you need to recreate the TempDB with these new objects, and that is why you can't create it. Some other difference, some of them that I already told you. I mean, the most important thing is that, I mean, I don't know if you are aware of a particular weight in managed instance and Azure SQL database called log rate. That means that the throughput that you are doing inside the transaction log and also the data file inside general purpose will be limited. We are going to cover one improvement that Microsoft released on the latest Microsoft Ignite, that they increased this limit. But be careful every time that you execute huge things on the transaction log that requires a lot of throughput, like index reveal, like big update or insert operations. So always try to use small batches. Obviously, with the index, we can't do too much, rather than resumable index that you can control. Okay, let's stop, let's start, and see what is the throughput. But be careful, because based on the vectors that you choose, there will be a limit. In general purpose, the same for the data. So try to always monitor that. I mean, you will see on your session log rate as a weight. So once you hit that, you already know that, hey, I am on the limit. So let's say that you have, I don't know, now the maximum is 120 megabits per sec. But let's say that you reach the limit. Well, you are going to continue the operation, but with this limit. What can you do if you reach the maximum? Well, you have two ways. If you choose, because this is per beacon, so if you choose the maximum, you can't do anything because that is the maximum. I asked this question to one of the program managers that we were following a case, and he told me, hey, we are doing this because we need to control the throughput for the entire service inside all of the region. That is why we are limiting this, because we can't do the entire power to one service and nothing to the other. That is why we chose this metric. But that's it. Every time that you execute something, try to monitor it. We are going. I mean, you can use the same stuff. I'm going to show you the same. I mean, I love the Blade First from Brent Ozar. You can use that one. If you are worried about the IO store, you can use that query as well to monitor. Or if you want to use the weights and use Paul Randall's query, you can use Paul Randall's query. But that is an important thing that you need to know, because maybe, hey, I have my workload, but it is lower in managed instance rather than on premises, and maybe that is one of the reasons. Backups are automated. You know, this is a service. Microsoft ensure that the backups are happening. Important thing, if you want to know which backups Microsoft run, you can do that. You can't query that information. I try to do that, believe me. You can see on the portal, okay, what is the latest point that I can restore a database, but you can't know, okay, how many backups Microsoft run, how many backups do I have. You just need to choose the date, the time, boom, period. That's it. You can do, you can query. I mean, if you normally query to see, hey, what are my backups? What are my options to restore my database? You will not be able to do that. But you can see on the portal which is the latest, which is the oldest, because we're using PowerShell. You can use both to say, okay, this is my interval between, I don't know, 30 days, 35 days, and today. Okay, that's it. Another important thing is that by default, since I think that 2 months ago, you can choose, you know, the point in time recovery is a parameter that will tell you, okay, hey, what is the interval, or what will be the oldest point that I will be able to restore my database? Well, in managed instance, the latest day is 35 days, so I can restore my database from today back to 35 days. What is the minimum? Well, now it's only 1 day, so you can say, okay, hey, I don't care about this. Okay, you can configure only one to say, okay, hey, I just want to only keep 1 day for my backups, and that's it. And you save money because you will not be using more backup retention. Another important thing, I know that we, the DBAs, run weekly, I don't know, index reveal, update the stats, check DB. Well, the backups and check DB will not be important for us because that will be covered by Microsoft. They ensure that the compatibility, that the check DB is fine, that you will not have any issues there. If you have any, just call Microsoft saying, hey, I am getting this issue, because they ensure that that everything is fine. So we need to take care about only index reveal and update statistic. Obviously, the auto-update stat works as the same for infrastructure as a service or on premises, but that is fine. Restore considerations, some of them, you can read them. Important thing here is that you can restore, obviously, with the compatibility level 90, not 80, not 70. You can restore a database from SQL 2005. I heard a lot of projects that are using that version, which is normal. But you can restore directly from there. High availability, here we have two options. The first one is if you choose business critical, as I mentioned before, you will have, or you will be covered behind bars, obviously inside the same region, obviously inside the same data center. There is a new feature in Azure SQL database that was released some days ago that you can choose availability zones. I don't know if you know that feature. If you don't, that feature allows you to have a VM, or obviously talking about an availability group topology, that if you want to have multiple VMs inside an availability set, you can choose obviously choosing this feature of availability zone, you can have multiple VMs inside different zones inside the same region. That will be different data centers. So if something happens inside one data center, you are covered. Well, that will be the same feature, but that is enabled for Azure SQL Database, and it is in preview, obviously. But I think that soon it will be for managed instance. But let's say that you want to be covered for a region outage. Obviously, if that, there is a problem inside a Microsoft region, you will see this in the media, because an entire region, it will be a mess. But if you want to be covered, you can use what we call auto failover groups, which is already in GA. GA means general available. It's like an availability group. It is the same. It is the same concept. You will have the same concept for listeners. As you can see here, you are going to connect to the read-write listener. If you want to offload the reads, you can connect to the read-only listener, and that's it. In case that something happened here, obviously that we can speak about an entire hour about this feature, but at least you have an idea. If something happened on the primary, you have a parameter called grace period, that the minimum is 1 hour. That means that Microsoft has 1 hour of time to bring up the service. If Microsoft can't, an automatic failover allowing data loss would happen. You know what that means, that maybe you lose data, but it is an option. Since this is in different regions, you know that Microsoft between different regions is not using synchronous connectivity, using more asynchronous connectivity. That is for a normal reason of the distance. So, at least you have the option. It's like an asynchronous availability group with different zones. Replication, I know that a lot of people loves replication. So important thing, once you search for replication for managed instance, you will see that it is in preview. Honestly, I use this a lot, and I never have any issue. But just in case, once you search for replication, you will see in preview. But anyway, you can use a managed instance as a publisher, as a distributor, or as a subscriber. You can use this service for anything, in case that you need. SQL Server Agent, I already told you that you can use jobs. Service Broker, the same. If you are using Service Broker, obviously with some limitation, database mail the same. In case that you are using CLR code, you can obviously use CLR from a file, because you cannot upload a file. You can only use CLR from binary code. It's a limitation, but at least something you can use. I know that there are a lot of people using CLR, so you can use that. Another important thing is that you know that these kind of services are vertically obviously partitioned, so you can only scale up only this service. You cannot add, like in an horizontal partitioning, more nodes to process the stuff. So can you do this? Well, the answer is yes. You can scale up, or you can add more storage, obviously without reaching the limit, or add more vCores. You need to know that adding more vCores will take time, because that is one of the problems. Once you provision a managed instance, it will take like between 3 and 5 hours, more or less. It is not like Azure SQL Database that you create, hey, create database, and it will take 5 to 10 minutes to complete. Well, this one will take like 4 or 5 hours, obviously depending on the vCores that you choose. And if you are increasing or scaling up this service, maybe that will take that time. Obviously, you are not going to have 4 hours of downtime. The downtime will be, okay, or the process that Microsoft do is like, okay, I have this VM or service, I'm going to create a new one, I'm going to synchronize, let's say, and once we finish, I will close the connection, perform the failover to the new one, and that's it. If it is a business critical, you need to know that that is not the thing that's happening only. You are moving this to here, and you are creating an availability group here, and maybe that takes more time. but the downtime will be, okay, hey, we are here, we are going to failover, okay, I will close the connection and then perform the failover. I don't know, okay. Important thing that I didn't mention is that if you have software assurance, you have a big benefit called Azure Hybrid Benefit, obviously having software assurance, that will allow you to save the cost of the license for this service. That will be between 40 and 50% of the price. So if you have software assurance, you need to know that you can save that money. If you have an enterprise agreement or a EA, you can also reserve the instance for 1 or 3 years because you know that you are going to use that time the service itself, and you can save more money. Another important thing is, I don't know if you already heard about serverless Azure SQL database pricing tier. This is a new one that auto-scale, auto-pause, and other thing. So will that work here in managed instance? The answer is no. That is only for Azure SQL database. If you heard about hyperscale, which allows you to have 100 terabytes of data for the database, will work here? The answer is no, maybe in the future. So we have only business critical general purpose, period. That's it. Instance pool, this is obviously in preview. This is a good feature for development or staging services. Let's say that you want to use multiple managed instances for development. You have multiple development teams. That means that you can pay, let's say that you purchase a 16-beaker managed instance, for different teams, but you only pay for 16. Inside you have multiple of them. Can you do that? Well, the answer is yes with this feature. This will help you to save costs because you don't need to create like 6 managed instances. You're going to create or to pay only 16 cores, which is a good one in case that you want to use for lower environment. Some news. The first one is the one that I mentioned, the famous log rate limit. That is why Microsoft said, hey, we are giving you something. We are not changing anything rather than giving you more throughput. So they increased to 120 the maximum throughput to manage instance. They did the same for Azure SQL database. But so if you need more throughput, now you have it. As I mentioned, that will depend on the number of pickers. That will depend on the size of the file. But at least you know that it was increasing. I mean, that is one of my pain points. Once I migrate to manage instance and to Azure SQL database, some application teams that say me, hey, this one was working faster in on-premises or infrastructure as a service. What is going on? Well, the first thing is that we have this limit here. You need to obviously use performance monitor to diagnose your IOPS, your throughput. I mean, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you want to move to something new, you need to learn as much as you can. So one of my recommendations always is to read the limit page or resource limit, and then you can start, because you have limit for logins, you have limit for IOPS, you have limit, hey, I want to use in memory. Well, be careful because there are some limits of memory that you can get per pricing tier, obviously only business critical, but per beaker. Another feature, it is called distribute transaction across SQL MIs. Here you can use different trust groups and different managed instances, and you can execute operation between different managed instances. It is in preview as well. It's a good stuff that you can at least have in. I mean, as I mentioned before, this is what we call a vertical partitioning service. If you want to, what we call sharding, you know that you can do that in Azure SQL database with the shard manager, among other stuff. You can do the same here if you want to partition horizontally your service, or if you are using a microservices architecture and you want to write between different services, you can do that in the future because now it's in preview. I mean, I am saying this because sometimes you have in preview features that if you want to use them in prod, I will recommend to call first Microsoft to say, hey, are you going to support me if something happens? If Microsoft say yes, because maybe by default they will say yes, but my recommendation is to get this approval between quotes. Another new is about the global VNet peering. So if you want to connect one managed instance from one region to any region inside the Azure ecosystem, you can do that using the global VNet peering, which is in preview, obviously. Now you can, for compliance, you can choose to move the backups to another zone, because before it was only on the same region, but now you can say, hey, I want to move my backups to other region. You can, if in case that you are using reporting services, you can host the catalog database there. Machine learning, R and Python, before it was in a private preview, now it's in public preview. In case that you are running some R or Python code, you can run inside managed instance now. It is in public preview now. Very important stuff is that every time that you create a managed instance, you don't know what is going on. Because it's like, hey, I am waiting this for 3 hours, 4 hours, what is going on? Well, now inside the portal, you will see, okay, what is the operation that was completed, what was the operation that was not, or that we are waiting. It's like a GUI, or it is inside the portal. You will see the status of the operation. Azure Database Migration Service, service that I love because it helps us to migrate to manage instance directly. We don't need to do anything rather than connect the service itself. Obviously, the first recommendation is to use the data migration assistance in case that you are coming from an on-premises or an infrastructure as a service database. If you are coming from another engine, you need to use the SQL Server migration assistant. After that, if everything is fine, you can migrate. Some limitation on issues. Some trace flags are supported. I'm going to show you that we have like 25 trace flag enabled in managed instance. I love trace flag because it, not always, but sometimes it's helping to speed up a little bit the SQL Server. In case that you are interested in the roadmap, what are the things that are coming, you can visit that site, and that's it. Let me stop a little bit. Oh, something happened. That's it. I don't know if, let's see, if there is any question. No, nothing, right? Nothing?
There is no questions so far, so, but the word is free if anyone has any questions.
Yes, absolutely, feel free. Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
We currently have an on-premise server which is end of life. So we are actually looking for an alternative like SQL managed instance. But the biggest problem I have with managed instance is that the connection between the number of vCores and the amount of memory. Currently, we have a server with 16 vCores and 256 gig memory. But to do that on managed instances, we have to buy a lot of vCores, which is actually not needed.
Yes. The answer, honestly, is yes, that happened. You know, this is a service, so unfortunately, the memory and the memory, I would say, is tied to the number of vCores. Yes, you can't do anything rather than, okay, I want to use different vCores, but you can't choose the memory. No. Yes, I know that. Hey, I want this memory, but I need to do this, and you see that the price is increasing. I understand.
And this is the same with the IaaS as well. If you want a virtual machine and you need to bump up the memory, well, then you'll get them an extra CPU on top of it because they are always tied together. And it kind of makes sense within a data center if Microsoft has invested in 100 servers which have a relation between vCores and the RAM inside them. Well, if they give away RAM without having you to bump up the vCores, then they have a lot of unused CPU power in their data center.
Yes, I mean, the same for, okay, I need more IOPS. Sometimes, you know that you need to choose a different disk because, hey, I need more IOPS, but why I'm using more storage if I don't need to? Yes, that can happen. Yes, but I get your point. That is a totally fair point.
Yeah, the problem is that if you purchase an IIS, you can have a memory intensive or a CPU intensive configuration, which is not the case with my instance.
That's true. That's true.
Yep, you're right. Any other question? No. Okay. If you don't know,
I have one. I have
Sure.
one question.
Sure.
It's kind of specific. So let's say you have a managed instance, and then in many companies you have like a support environment where if there is a production issue, you don't want to do troubleshooting in production. You want a copy of how production looked at 8 in the morning or something. Is there something built in to kind of not replicate, but to snapshot a whole managed instance to another one where you can do all your querying or what have you?
No. No, in case that you want to create a snapshot or to move the entire service to other part, no, you don't have a way to do that. I mean, you can execute backup and restores from one managed instance to another one, but I mean, the feature to take a photo or a snapshot from one service to another, it will be awesome. That is a very good idea, honestly.
Yeah, because I mean, if I do a backup and restore, I have to move the data around. If there would be a way to, I mean, do it in the storage layer from Microsoft side, so they just take a copy of the LUNs or something, that would be awesome. But okay, it's
Absolutely.
a feature request then.
Yes, absolutely. Please fill up and you will get my vote. Absolutely. So this is the portal where you have the different services. From us, it is managed instance. Important stuff. I don't know if you're using SCOM or System Center Operation Manager from Microsoft. You can, there is a pack that will monitor managed instance. So in case that you need monitoring, you have SCOM. In case that you use today. And if you're using like a ticketing system like ServiceNow, you can directly create incidents from SCOM. If you don't have a SCOM and you want to create alerts, you can create alerts here. They're not too much, but you can do that. This is for the monitoring. I know that it is very important. But anyway, let's start again with the creation of the managed instance resource group where all of your services are. It's like a container of resources. Let's say Magnus. You all of the region, all of the 54 regions allows managed instance to be configured. Here you choose, hey, what do you want to do? General purpose, business critical. You choose the vCores. You choose the storage. Here is the benefit that I told you. You need to click here just to save the money. Click apply. Well, this one is one of the features that I told you that was new in Ignite, where, hey, I want my backups geo-redundant for another region. Obviously, it's more price. Then the login, which is like a sysadmin, the password, and that's it. Networking, in case that you already have a VNet standardized for your cloud team, you can use that one, or if you want to create a new one, you can do that. The public endpoint that I mentioned before, be careful with this one. Another very important thing, I don't know if you are having any initiative or something for TLS, but my recommendation obviously is to use the latest one. You can modify this parameter to another version and to roll back it, so there is no problem. Important stuff, collation. You can use a different collation in case that you need it. Obviously, this is the instance collation. Tags, this is for, or at least we use the tag to know, hey, which is the owner of these services? Who needs to pay for this? Which environment is this? I mean, this will give you some information. So then if you want to use PowerShell to get all of your services inside your subscription, you can use tags to get them, review, create, boom, the process will start. This will take, depending on the size, between 3 to 6 hours, depending. Once this finish, we have this one, this beautiful thing. The most important thing is that you need to use the host name to connect. Important thing, if you want to, I would say, join, between quotes, the managed instance of the domain, you need a special permission. So, I mean, we are having a problem with this, you know. Every time that we create a managed instance and need to add here the Active Directory admin from the DBA team, we need to go to another team to say, hey, can you please give me permissions, blah, 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 blah. Connection strings is very important depending on the driver that you're using. You can copy paste directly the connection string. This will save you a lot of time. Obviously, you need to use the latest version of the drivers, otherwise it will not work. Failover groups, the one that I mentioned to move the managed instance from one region to another one. Transparent data encryption by default. The databases inside the service are encrypted with TDE. One of the good things is that you can provide your own key, but to provide your own key, you have two different ways. One way will be create a key inside an Azure Key Vault. Obviously, a key created by Microsoft, but you can control it. You can back up it in case that something happened. You can restore it to, let's say that you use a customer key in prod and you want to restore in station. You will have to back up the key from production. You need to restore it in station, and then you will be able to restore the database. Obviously, if you are changing a customer managed key with an auto failover group topology, you will have to break that. You will have downtime because you are going to break the listener thing, just to know, in case that you want to use that in an auto failover group topology. SQL Trust Group, the thing that I mentioned before about the distribute transaction between different managed instances for sharding between quotes. Alerts, depending, I mean, honestly, there are not too much alerts, you know. I think that they can use more condition and all that stuff. As you can see, there are not too much activities to alert, but I mean, something is something. Let's say that you want to know the CPU, etc., and you want to use a threshold, and then you will receive an email based on that alert, etc. Or, as I mentioned, you can use SCORM or System Center to monitor your system. Another important stuff, very important, is the metrics. We don't have too much metrics, but the most important are here, like the CPU. Yes, I know that you love the target and total server memory for SQL. I know that you love to monitor the memory, but we don't have here. But at least you can choose directly metrics. Let's say last 7 days. Obviously, I created this yesterday, and that's it. Diagnostic settings, here you can send some information. As you can see, for example, to a log analytics. Log analytics will be your repository to get some data or some information about your services. To storage account or event hub, you can send these metrics directly there, so then you can query them, or you can directly see your log analytics repository here. You can execute the custom queries here, and there are some other stuff. Let's say that we finish all of the configuration and we want to see, hey, we want to see managed instance now. Okay, sure. This is my on-premises SQL. I can't remember if I remove. No, they are here. Okay. This one is how an infrastructure as a service or on-premises SQL Server installations look like. Here it is a managed instance. It is exactly the same. As you can see, I am using the latest 18.7.1 Management Studio version, and after I install it, you will see here, this little guy appear here. I don't know if you're using it, if you like it or whatever, but you have the option. Well, you don't have the option to install or uninstall. You have the option to use it. Sorry.
There has been some discussions, to say the least, about
yes,
if it's a good or bad idea to force ADS on us.
It smells like blood.
Yes, I mean you don't have the option. Wait, let me see that. I will open the connection. Yes, there are some big discussion. I know that. I saw the item. I don't know. What do you think? I don't know if you agree or disagree on that. Maybe we can discuss. But I don't know why. Honestly, maybe just to push more the people to use this service or this application or something. Well, as you can see, I click connect. I mean, one of the good things, about this is that you can create notebooks and hey, I want to create a script inside here. I want to execute step by step. I don't know, something like that. You can install different extensions. For example, there is, let me see, manage, because there is one for manage instance. Here, there is a dashboard, kind of. You click install and that's it. From my point of view, the problem that I mean, I am not a developer, I am a DBA, so I am not writing some code lately, but if you want to do anything, you need to install an extension all the time, and I don't like it. I mean, I want an application that gives me everything, and I don't need to care about anything. But that is just my point of view. See that, hey, we need to import, and that's it. This is just my point of view. And here, well, you have information and that's it. Inside managed instance, you have databases, security, server objects, replication. I mean, it is the same. See that also we can see the jobs. For example, let me just execute this. Or for example, one of the things that we the DBAs manage all the time is the cost threshold or the max DOP. You can change it. Let's say 4. Let's say, I don't know, 15. They optimize for other workloads. Let's enable it, and you can change it. That's it. It's the same database. For example, I restored this adventure box yesterday. We have the files. Let me, I don't know, modify this to 256. Let's say I have the different options. Oh, Gonzalo, you didn't change the compatibility level. I will kill you. And you can change it. See, it's a database. It is the same.
How is it working if I do some changes on the instance level, like for example the max DOP or something, and you have 4 replicas? Is that handled? If you have the business critical, well, then you have 3 secondaries in your AG cluster. Do you have to connect to all of them, or will Azure Managed Instance handle it behind the scenes?
Well, the answer for that, I mean, there is one more feature that came some months ago that you can fail over on a business critical. You can use PowerShell to say, hey, I want to test the failover. Okay. You can use PowerShell to say, okay, I'm going to failover from the primary to the secondary because I want to test it. You can do that. Your question is an awesome question that I didn't test it, honestly.
Okay. Then I'll just have to do some labs.
Yes, absolutely. I think that is something that we can test it, because that is a very fair and very good point, because, hey, what will happen? Because it's an instance change. It's not a database change, and we're not going to replicate it. I think that there should be a process that, hey, there was a change. Let's apply it on the other part. But I didn't test it, honestly. And that is a very good point. Thank you.
Göran is asking in the chat, what's the output of select at that version? So could we test that?
Sure, absolutely. You will see manage instance. And then we have the jobs. I already show you blend first. I already show you, or for example, free from something that we love. Oh no, we don't love. Yes, you can do this. Or for example,
it's a perfect production command.
Or the other one, drop clean buffers. Oh, the drop clean. I mean, these are the things that you, I would say, mustn't do, but you can do here. And then let's say that you want to configure replication, I mean, options, it is the same. Or for example, another thing that you say, hey, I mean, most of the people like, other don't like. That will be up to you, but you can use query store. I didn't enable anything. This is by default. Obviously, I didn't run any query, but you can use it. This is by default. You can run incredible Erin Stratos queries, and you can use the same. It is the same. I mean, there are some limitations. As I told you, there are some things that, let me show you quickly from storage account. I have, okay. For example, let me show you Azure. Now, let's do the other one, the other demo. Storage account. I mean, you know that starting SQL 2014, we can use this, which means that we will be able to directly execute a backup from IIS or on-premises directly to a blob storage. I think that I need to use a new one. Let's say that you are, well, let's do one thing. Because we can use more than one file. One of my recommendations always to move to the cloud is to use multiple files for your backup. This is because you will be moving small pieces directly to the cloud. Also, if you prefer to do the backup locally, you know that until the backup finish, the transaction log will not be truncated between quotes. So if this is a very large database, I will recommend to use like, I don't know, 20, 30 pieces, and then copy them one by one to blob storage. And that's it. And then you can execute the restore. How is the restore command? Here. I will show you, for example, the one that I did yesterday. You can see using the restore file. I mean, I am using the same commands. This is nothing different, as you can do this in on-premises. And then restore, boom. The only thing is that if you restore the database, the stat parameter, stat something, is not supported. So if you want to see the status, you need to use the query. And then once you restore, you are here. Boom, that's it. Then change the compatibility level and start playing. Make sure that you can save the cost, obviously, because it's not a cheap service. Just make sure that you are covering that. You can stop this service, for example, in SQL Pulse, well, now in Azure Synapse, but before SQL Data Warehouse, you can stop the service, but here you can. So this will be a 24/7 service. If you have staging, if you have dev, well, this will be on the entire day, the entire week, the entire time. So from, I would say, a stopping perspective, you can't save money, but you can if you have software assurance or the EA, and you reserve this instance for 1 or 2 or 3 years, but this will be on the entire time. Well, shops, operator, email, all the stuff, it is supported. Honestly, I didn't find too much issues here. Also the catalog here, in case that you are interested, you need to use Data Factory, but you can do that. You can deploy the catalog here. And that's it. Let me think about any other problem that I face. Well, no. Well, the capacity, the processing, well, I think that I put an 8 core, and I have only 40 gigabytes of memory. So, yes, I mean, this is a pretty good suggestion also, to say, hey, I want more memory. Can I choose more memory? Yes, that is another suggestion to the SQL team. But, you know, if we are searching for something that similar that you have today, this is a very good option. If you want, or for example, let's say that you are migrating. No, this one, no. Let me see. This is, if you never see this one, we have data migration assistant or data experimentational assistant. This one is for assess your database. The other one is for assess your workload. There is another workload tool that I love, which is from an MVP. I saw the episode here, but I already know from before, which is workload tool. Let's say Magnus. And we are moving from SQL Server because this is my case. If you don't know, RDS in Amazon is like having the same instance, but as a service. Amazon like install a SQL Server inside a VM between quotes. They will give you an endpoint, but it is the same installation, but inside a VM and everything automated between quotes. You need to move the version manually if you want a higher CU or a service pack, among other stuff. But if you never see that. And our target is a managed instance. We're going to create this. We can check database compatibility or the feature parity. In my case, I'm going to only choose database compatibility. This one will be my server. Yes, I don't have SSL. We're going to access both. This is very important. Let's say that on your application, you have dynamic code, code that doesn't exist inside the database. So what can you do? Well, you can use extended events to get those codes and upload the file here, so that code will be analyzed as well. And then let's start, and that's it. Obviously, this is a small database. I will recommend to run, if you're going to run this in a production environment, I will recommend run it outside business hours, or if you can, as Magnus mentioned, you can create a snapshot and move it to another part and run this there. It will be awesome as well. And that's it. Once you are ready and you say, hey, yes, I am ready, and you can move it. Well, another recommendation that I give you every time that I speak with application, I always use term application because this is for me and my clients. What I recommend to them is, first of all, if you're moving to a new service, try to, I would say in between quotes, push the data. So, I mean, in the cloud, performance, space is something that costs a lot. Sometimes you can between quote, administer this thing in on premises, because you can say, hey, this is your quota and that's it. But if you make mistakes, you can have three problems. One is the cost, because the storage is not cheap. So first, try to push the data as much as you can. So if in your system you have data from 10 or 15 years ago, first ask the question to say, hey, do we really need this data here? Yes or no? That is a very important thing, you know, because we move all of the old things to the new, and it's something strange. Obviously, if there is a policy, if there is a law, if there is something that prevents you to do this, I got it. The next thing is try to use the latest features. Try to, for example, hey, I don't know, we are using a very old feature. Try to use the new one. I don't know, try to use the new feature because you're moving to something new. I have a lot of application teams that are still using link servers, and I say, hey, why don't, if you're going to move to Azure, why don't you choose a service? Try to break that monolithic architecture design and try to build some microservices. Don't always try to rely in only one services. Oh, I have everything here. Okay, try to use something new. If you have, I don't know, as I mentioned for Data Factory, but there are a bunch of services. You can use Azure Web Apps as well and other stuff. And also there is a site, I can't remember the name. Let me see if I can find it, because there is a Azure migration program, I think is that, where there are different customers that will give you some feedback about the migration. Oh, well, I owe you that one because, oh, sorry, it's in Spanish. And I need to search the site because there are some feedback from customer stories here. I don't know, you can search for different customers on the migration to Azure SQL database, managed instance to the cloud, etc., in case that you need to justify, hey, we want to migrate to the cloud. What then? And the last thing, because we are close to, yes, I am already past of the hour, is managed databases. I spoke about the backup retention, and by default is 7. What does it mean? Okay, I want to restore my database from here 7 days back. Okay, can you modify that? Well, the answer is yes, from 1 to 35. But what is the problem with that? Let's say that you have a policy, that you have, I don't know, some law thing that you need to preserve the backup from 5 years, 10 years, what we call in Azure SQL database, the log backup retention, the log point in time backup retention. That will work for Azure, but it will not work for managed instance. So what can we do? Well, we can execute backups directly to blob storage and keep them there. That's it. Because in case that we need it, we can. I know that there are numerous problems with that. Well, as you can see, it's changing. So you can just feel free to use that option.
I guess then you would just make sure to run copy-only backups because you don't want to break the restore chain in the normal backup schedule.
Exactly. The only class supported is copy-only.
Okay. I need to stop you there, to be honest, because I'm going to get my new office in 3 minutes, so I need to go there.
Well, congratulations again. I mean,
thank you. And thank you so much for presenting. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, thank you, Magnus. Thank you also all of the people that joined here. I hope to see you soon, and thank you for everything.
Yeah, and as you know, it is recorded, so I'm going to do some basic editing, and then let's say probably later tonight or early tomorrow, it's going to be up on the website.
Yes, I mean, you are moving to a new office. I know that you will be very tired. So I mean,
but
time for
but I also have this new monitor, which is 49 inches, widescreen one. So maybe I need to play with it a bit. So I might do some editing tonight in the office.
Nice.
Okay, so anyway, thank you so much for coming. So,
thank you, guys. Have a good one.
And you.
Bye-bye.